Will present a request to the United Nations on Friday asking for Palestinian membership in the UN. However, a vote on acceptance or rejection by the UN Security Council will not take place immediately. It could take several months. We'll give you all the details today on politics and religion.
Look, there are two things I don't discuss: politics and religion.
In my house, we don't talk about politics and we don't talk about religion.
I'll talk to you about anything except politics and religion.
I never talk about politics and religion.
Politics determines how we'll live here on earth. Religion determines how we'll live forever. I'm Irvin Baxter. I think it's time we talk about it. I had mentioned to you previously that even if a request was made for Palestinian membership, it could be tabled, it could be postponed. There's a lot of options. When you get into the world of diplomacy, there are more tricks than there are problems many times. So this report comes today. This is from an article entitled "No Big UN Showdown on Palestinian State This Week." Accounts of the big diplomatic showdown facing the United Nations when the Palestinian bid for statehood is filed Friday, September 23rd, have been blown up and over-dramatized. Neither the Security Council nor the UN General Assembly will be making any immediate decisions this week, and U.S. President Barack Obama will not be called on as yet to veto the Palestinian application. Therefore, the dispute over which side can muster the magic majority of 9 members is premature. The article goes on to say that that UN General Secretary Ban Ki-moon and the United States, which holds the key to the tussle, have arranged to put the Palestinian application on hold, or more diplomatically, under consideration, a process which could consume weeks, if not months, before it is referred to the Security Council. Now, I knew all along that this was a possibility because this is such a volatile issue, so fraught with possibilities of violence, since usually one of the tactics, at least in times past, of the Palestinians has been to resort to violence. Consequently, I knew there might be some kind of a stalling tactic, a cooling off period. The article goes on to say that the General Assembly is not expected to get right down to debating the Palestinian request. It will most likely be held in abeyance for the next session. So this could go on. It could actually be held in the next session, or if Ban Ki-moon would so choose, he could hold a special session. Now, what's the deal here? What's really going on? There's been a lot of pressure created to come up with an answer. Now, if this is put off for a few weeks or months, then the pressure is going to continue. The furious negotiation behind the scenes is going to continue. Now, with that said, let's see what else has been happening on the diplomatic scene so we can understand from the Palestinian side, from the Israeli side. This comes from CNN. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas will submit a letter to the United Nations Security Council Friday requesting formal UN recognition of Palestinian statehood, according to a top Palestinian official. Abbas met Wednesday with UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, who promised that the request will be taken very seriously. The UN General Assembly is up for its 66th session, which is dominated with the concern over the Israeli-Palestinian problem. Ban said it will not take long to get the Security Council consideration. So said Mr. Nabil Shath, who is part of the Palestinian Authority. Schacht said that settling for a lesser status at the United Nations, such as becoming a non-state member, is one option under consideration if the push for statehood is ultimately blocked. But the Palestinians do not want anybody to suspect a lack of seriousness. All right, here's what's being said. It's being stated that if this does come before the UN Security Council, which it's apparently bound to do, that the U.S. is attempting to muster enough votes to block it. The Palestinians would have to have a majority of 9 out of 15 votes. Right now, they apparently are short, so the U.S. has been able to get enough of the powers to agree with it that this is the wrong course of action, that to try to get the United Nations to unilaterally declare what the borders should be rather than to negotiate those borders is simply not possible. Now, this is putting another tool in Obama's hands, however, because if he goes back to the Israelis and say, look, our choices are we settle this thing between us and the Palestinians, or else this is going to end up before the UN Security Council. The UN Security Council will not forever reject it, or the Palestinians may go on to the General Assembly. And so he may pressure the Israelis over the next few weeks or months, saying we've simply got to get a deal done. We don't know exactly what road this is going to take, but we do know where we're going to end up. We know that we're going to end up with the Temple Mount under international control being shared by Palestinians and Israelis. We also know that the area of Judea, whatever size that may turn out to be, is going to be under Palestinian control, with Jews choosing to live in this newly created Palestine state as a Jewish minority. The Bible is very clear on those 2 points. That's where we're headed. The question is, how do we get from where we are today to there? This is such huge breaking news that it's very critical that we spend a little time here. I know we've been talking about it a lot, but do you understand why I'm talking about this so much? We're talking about this will be one of the 2 greatest prophetic fulfillments in the last 2,000 years. Now, you heard me right. When they get this peace agreement between Palestinians and Israelis, when they finally get it, whether that's today, tomorrow, or a year from now, or 2 years from now, when they finally get it, it will be one of the 2 greatest prophetic fulfillments since the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Now, think about that. We're talking about 2,000 years of human history. And actually, this one is probably going to be as big or bigger than the rebirth of the Israeli state in the Holy Land. I mean, this is a huge prophetic fulfillment, because when this happens, this is the only prophecy we have with a date on it. When this happens, it will mark the beginning of the final 7 years to the Battle of Armageddon and the second coming of Jesus Christ. Now think about that. If somehow behind the scenes they would be negotiated, and I have no inkling of evidence that this is taking place. Matter of fact, everything everybody's saying is we don't have an answer today. We wish we had an answer. We don't have an answer. However, there's got to be an answer, and it has to be implemented very, very soon. But today there's no answer. So consequently, it looks like we will not get the agreement that will trigger the final 7 years suddenly come out of nowhere, even though they've been negotiating furiously. It looks like a course of action has been pounded out, because it states here that this will be set aside for a while. It will finally be put before the Security Council, at which time it will either be voted down or else vetoed by the United States. Now, if Obama would get at least what does he need? He needs 8 votes against it. No, actually, 7 votes against it. They have to have 9 votes for it. There are a total of 15 votes. So if he gets 7 votes against it, then the U.S. would not be isolated in the eyes of the world, but there would be at least 7 major players on the world scene saying no. Several of those could well be nations with veto power. For instance, France and Great Britain, depending on which side they would vote on. Now, we're pretty sure that Russia would vote with the Palestinians. China would vote with the Palestinians. But nevertheless, right now, the Palestinians are saying, we have 7 votes, we need 2 more. So if they need 9 votes, and they say they've only got 7 today, there are apparently enough people on the fence that they know that they don't presently, there's apparently 8 people looking the other way right now. So it looks like perhaps the United States and President Obama is winning the diplomatic battle. Don't know that for sure. But whether they win or lose, the Palestinians still have the prerogative of going on to the UN General Assembly, where it could be voted in the favor of the Palestinians and grant then non-member state status to the Palestinians, which has its own set of ramifications. Now, they would much rather be full members of the United Nations with recognition than be a non-member of the United Nations with state recognition. But those are the 2 choices that are facing us right now. This may not come to a showdown for, like I've read to you, weeks or months. But it's interesting to watch all of the negotiations behind the scenes. Now, Abbas says that he will give some time to the Security Council before trying to negotiate statehood via the General Assembly. Schacht said, "We do not think of this as a tactic or a bluff." He stressed this is really a moment of truth. Schacht said that settling for a lesser status at the United Nations, such as becoming a non-state member, is one option under consideration. Finally, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vehemently opposes UN recognition of a Palestinian state, arguing that such a development would derail an already fragile Middle East peace process because it would frankly violate the Oslo Accords. The Oslo Accords, which have been controlling things in the Middle East to one extent or another, specifically say that the final borders must be negotiated. Resolution 242, Resolution 338 both say that the final border should be negotiated. Now, all of a sudden, those resolutions, the UN's own resolutions, get thrown in the trash can if, in fact, they would be willing to bypass all that and to make a ruling. So that's some of what is going on. I want to give you a little bit more detail because it's so interesting that in addition to his comments about the Palestinians and the Israeli situation, President Obama in his speech today used his address to the General Assembly to tackle a range of issues relating to the so-called Arab Spring, celebrating the toppling of autocratic rulers in Egypt, Libya, and Tunisia, while expressing support for reform movements in Bahrain, Yemen, and elsewhere. Now, I've not read the speech word for word yet because the transcript has not been made available yet, but it probably will be sometime this afternoon. I'll be bringing that back to the microphone tomorrow. The article went on to say, for the world in general, Obama declared the tide of war is receding. The U.S. leader asserted that the belief that change could come through violence died with al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden's demise. Now, Obama's trying to say that the belief that change can come through war is now receding. He says that died with the killing of Osama bin Laden. This has been a difficult decade, he said, but today we stand at a crossroads of history with the chance to move decisively in the new direction of peace. So President Obama is trying to say we're at a turning point here. We're getting ready to enter an era of peace. Well, I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see if that happens. We will be taking your calls in the next segment of Politics and Religion. Stay right with us. If you'd like to be on the air with us, 877 Endtime is the number for you to call.
Maybe you've listened to Politics and Religion for years, and every time you hear us talk about Endtime's free weekly e-newsletter, you say to yourself, today is the day I go to endtime.com and sign up. But the teacher from school calls, Junior's sick, your husband texts you a picture of the mailbox that Susie ran over while learning to back out of the driveway, and as you try to get out of the door, your boss is waiting for that detailed report that was actually due yesterday. All of a sudden, convenience is not on your side, and now the e-newsletter is the last thing on your mind. We now offer an easy-to-use feature that is perfect for those of you that have little time to spare. Just text the word Endtime to the number 22828. It's that easy. Text ENDTIME to the number 22828. That's ENDTIME to the number 22828.
William Koenig is the author of Eye to Eye, Facing the Consequences of Dividing Israel, in which he contends that America's 12 costliest hurricanes and 2 largest terrorism events began within 24 hours of U.S. presidents applying pressure on Israel to trade her land for promises of peace and security. Are each one of these record-setting events just a coincidence or all-spiraling signs that God is actively involved in the affairs of Israel? Find out on Tuesday, September 27th on Politics and Religion.
Tired of the same old boring TV? Tired of the not-so-reality TV? We have the answer. Tune in to the exciting show that keeps you up to date with current events. Hope, meaning, answers. That is the message that Irvin Baxter's End of the Age series represents. You can tune in every Sunday on Daystar at 10:30 p.m., Mondays on the Church Channel at 9 p.m., or tune in to TBN on Wednesday mornings at 7 a.m., all Central Standard Time. Get informed today.
Listen up, Newport News, Virginia. For all of you in that area, I will be there on Sunday. The church is called the Peninsula Pentecostals, 404 Sharon Drive. That's Newport News, Virginia. We will be there at 10 a.m., at 11:15 a.m., and at 6:30 p.m. So for all those services, you are welcome. We will be teaching different sessions in each of those particular services, and we're going to have a great time there with Pastor Orango. Been there before, had a wonderful time. Looking forward to it again. That is this coming Sunday, the 25th of September. So if you're any place close there, we've had people drive in 3, 4, 5, 6 hours to the meeting. So that'd be a great day for you to come in and to be with us in our prophecy conference in Newport News, Virginia. Good news. We now are sitting at $108,912. That means less than $11,100. We are away from our goal. Matter of fact, let me tell you the exact. I'll calculate it here real quickly in my mind. It would be exactly, let me see, it'd be $11,087.44. $11,087.44 would take us over the top. $120,000 for the translation project. We certainly thank all of you that are continuing to contribute. We're almost there. Will we make it this week? I don't know. I certainly hope so. Anyway, we're going to make it. So if you're out there and you'd like to help put us over the top, please pick up the phone and call us right now. 1-800-END-TIME is the number to call. We are now going to, I'm excited, aren't you? I mean, this means that by January 1, that the Understanding the End Time prophecy material that Jesus said he would unveil in the end time will be unveiled. It's right now locked in English only, which only reaches less than 30% of the world's population, but as of January 1, it will reach 90%, over 90% of the world's population. We are so thankful. We are so excited. Thank you all so very much for your fine contributions. We appreciate it so very much. I want to get to the phones now because there's a lot of questions pending. First of all, I want to go to a question that has to do with the program today. Arkansas. Hello, Blake. What's on your mind today?
Yeah, I was watching Piers Morgan last night with the Israel Prime Minister, I believe it was, and that dude was talking about last night that about something with the missiles. They're ready to send missiles and wanting to attack Washington, D.C. and everything. And I was wondering if that was from that Mideast peace process that they are doing. And I was wanting your information on that.
Well, now, Blake, let me make sure I understand what you're saying. You're saying someone was being interviewed and they were talking about missiles to Washington, D.C.?
That's what I was watching Piers Morgan, but I was just wanting to see if you heard anything like that last night.
Well, I didn't hear that in particular. Of course, there's always the threat when you talk about Iran. Iran is attempting to develop a nuclear weapon, everybody believes. and they also are developing long-range missile capabilities to carry those weapons. I don't believe they have the capacity right now to reach Washington, D.C. Okay. The only two entities that would have that capacity would be Russia or China. They both have the ability, as far as I know, to reach any city in the United States of America. So perhaps there was some kind of a threat about that. Other than that, I'm not sure what you're speaking of.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm trying to watch all this Mideast peace thing because it really is exciting me. And but it looks like Obama is trying to put himself above everything. Do you believe that?
Well, I do believe he has world rulership ambitions. Whether he ever achieves those ambitions, I think his biggest challenge right now is to get reelected in 2012, and it's highly questionable whether that's going to happen. A lot of people think that he's not going to make it. However, his speech before the United Nations, he did take a very clear stance against the United Nations voting to partition the land of Israel, to determine the borders unilaterally rather than by negotiation. He took a very strong and uncompromising stance on that particular point. And so I don't think he probably could be faulted about that. Now, a lot of people say we would never have had this problem if it wasn't for what he did, and that is that he himself called for the freezing of settlements and for negotiation on the basis of 1967 borders. And many people think that if he had not said last year at the United Nations that by 2011 we are believing and hoping that there will be a new member of the United Nations, the Palestinian Authority, if he hadn't said that we wouldn't be having the trouble that we're having today. So he's taken a lot of flack for it. Governor Perry has come out very strongly against what Barack Obama said. And I think the tactic that Barack Obama took has, in fact, contributed to this situation. And so he's probably getting some things that he deserves. Nevertheless, as far as his speech at the UN today, I listened to the part of it that they had available, and frankly, he came down very strong on the side of the Israelis, at the same time trying to maintain even-handedness, saying that the Israelis simply must have security because they are surrounded by people who have made war against them repeatedly, and therefore they cannot be expected to agree to borders that do not make them secure. On the same time, he said the Palestinians certainly deserve their own state and that the United States of America has come down strongly on a two-state solution. So he was quite even-handed, but very much against the request by Mahmoud Abbas for the United Nations to unilaterally declare a state and define the borders of that state. So I think Israel's probably fairly pleased with what Barack Obama did today.
Okay, I thank you for that, because he's just starting to look kind of interesting to me, I think.
Well, and he is. He even said, and one of the things he said in his speech that I found so interesting, he said that the death of Osama bin Laden signals the end of the time when conflict is settled by armed means, and we're moving into a new era of peace. Now, he's got a lot of battles to fight before he gets there. Whether he's trying to convince himself or not, I do not know, but he certainly is on a campaign of peace and claiming that we're getting ready to enter an unprecedented era of peace. Well, we will see. It's going to be interesting to see what he has in mind. Okay, let's get back to our phones now, and all the way up in Alaska. Hello, Adrian. Welcome to Politics and Religion.
Hi, Brother Baxter. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you very well. It sounds like you're right next door.
Oh, cool. I love your show. I watch it every day.
Thank you.
And I can't get enough. Brother Baxter, I found something new just the other day, and I just really was just been on fire. I've been wanting to share this with you.
Okay.
And I was wondering if we could talk about it and see what you think.
Sure.
Now, you talked about America in prophecy with your first video. Now, I really love that. How Russia, the bear, and lion, England, America, the eagle. The other day, and one thing I did learn was that Germany is the black eagle. But I found the other day when I typed in Iran, national animal was the leopard, the Persian leopard. And I brought up the picture, and it is this beautiful animal, this beautiful leopard, and it looks, with its spots and everything, looks just like Revelation. Could Iran have something to do, with this leopard? I also read an article in Time magazine, 2007, that Iran's secret weapon, the Pope. And I remember you talking about an article you brought up in 2010 that the top Vatican officials hold interfaith dialogues. And you talked about that a little bit. And I was just amazed to see that Iran's national leopard, like ours is the bald eagle, that theirs is actually the leopard.
Well, I did not know that. And so it's going to be very interesting for me to check that out because I've never heard that before, Adrian, but I'm certainly going to check it out. I want to know. Now, of course, I've always believed that the leopard in this case stood for Germany because of several reasons. Number one, the leopard in Daniel 7 has the wings of a fowl and also has 4 heads, and dominion was given to the leopard. Well, Germany has dominated world affairs in Europe for the last 1,000 years, and Germany is an alliance with France, whose national symbol is the rooster or a fowl. It's called the Franco-German Alliance. And a beast in Bible prophecy always represents a nation. Multiple heads on a beast represent the number of times that nation will rise and fall. And we've had the First Reich, Second Reich, Third Reich, and now the Fourth Reich, which is presently rising. There are actually books written about the Fourth and Richest Reich, speaking of the present resurgence of Germany. So that's what I believe to this point, but I'm certainly going to look really close at what you're saying, and I thank you for it.
Thank you, Brother Baxter. This is fun. Oh, I have zeal.
It is, prophecy is just fascinating, especially when the pieces really, really come together. And they are coming together, of course, right now in an amazing way, especially at the United Nations this week.
So what does the signpost to Indianapolis say now?
Well, I know we're at least 7 miles away or 7 years away because that final treaty has not been concluded yet. I'm assuming that we will still be at least 7 years away at the end of this year. It looks like to me that the war, when President Obama is saying that we're at the end of war, I'm listening to what he said, and I'm thinking the Bible says there's a war coming that's going to dwarf all wars. It will kill 2.3 billion people. So I think that President Obama is in a very huge delusion right now.
Yeah. Thank you, Brother Baxter.
Okay. God bless you, Adrian. We'll see you next time. And let's try it. Let's go quickly to Ohio. Hello, Janet.
How are you, Irvin Baxter?
I'm doing good, Janet. You?
I'm doing fine. I was wanting to know, I heard, my friend told me yesterday that there was a satellite that was going to hit the Earth in a matter of like 72 hours or something like that.
Yes.
And is that, you think that's part of Bible prophecy or judgment on the earth or something?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I just think there's a satellite getting ready to fall. I do not think it's Bible prophecy. There's a little consternation about it because there's a slight chance, very, 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 very small chance that some of this debris could hit someone, but it's not very likely. But there are some pretty big pieces falling. One piece is about the size of a bus, so it could hurt someone if it landed in the wrong place.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Janet. Good question, though.
17 million, Shanghai, China. 13 million, Moscow, Russia. 20 million, Mexico City, Mexico. This is the population of just a few cities that currently don't have understanding of the end time. But imagine the billions of people in places like Paris, France, Rome, Italy, Cairo, Egypt, and many other cities throughout the world that currently need the end time message translated in their language. Irvin Baxter has a burden to get the End of the Age series, Understanding the End Time, translated into the 8 major languages of the world. The translation project will take a total of just $120,000. If you'd like to participate in reaching the world with this message, call 1-800-363-8463. Your gift of $1, $10, or $50 will make a difference. Call 1-800-ENDTIME or visit endtime.com to help reach the world with the End Time message.
Do you ever hear the news and know that something's just not right? Do you ever read about politics and think, what is going on? Maybe you wonder what all this means for you and me. Well, we finally have some answers. Irvin Baxter has a 12-lesson series called Understanding the End Time that has aired throughout the world on TBN and Daystar. This series contains lessons like United States discovered in the Bible, Islam and Bible prophecy, and the 7 trumpets. The Bible says in Daniel 11:33, "They that understand among the people shall instruct many." Would you like to be one who understands end-time events so you can instruct your friends and loved ones? If your answer is yes, then don't miss out on Understanding the End Time with Irvin Baxter. Call 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463 and request your copy of Understanding the End Time.
We're talking today about what's going on at the United Nations. President Obama is congratulating those nations that have overthrown their rulers. He's congratulated Egypt, Tunisia, and Libya. So he's coming down very strong on the side of the Arab Spring. He hasn't mentioned, apparently, Syria in his speech because he knows that any sanctions against Syria will be vetoed by Russia. Russia's let us know in no uncertain terms, you will not bring Syria down. We stood aside while you brought down Mubarak, and you exceeded the mandate that you received at the United Nations. We won't even give you the chance to do that in Syria. So it looks like that we may be still stuck with Mr. Bashar Assad. We don't know the answer to that for sure and what course things could take there, but it's interesting nonetheless. I want to get back to the phones right now, and let's go to Georgia. Hello, Larry. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Reverend Baxter. The question I wanted to address was what one of your call-in people raised. The missile that Iran tested this summer is believed to be capable of hitting New York City, which is Iran's #1 target. And the missile base they have in Venezuela is quite capable of hitting almost any American city except maybe a few right across the Northwest.
Well, Larry, let me ask you a question now. Do you have a well-documented article that states this? I do know that Iran has made an alliance with Venezuela, so I would not be surprised. Or is it Venezuela or Nicaragua?
Venezuela.
If that is in fact the case, then I can see that they would be able to hit us from here because they are able to reach all the way to Europe from Iran. So if they've got that same missile in South America, then they probably could, in fact, reach the United States of America. So maybe that's information that I didn't have at my fingertips.
I don't have it in writing. This was a news article on TV that hundreds of millions of dollars had been paid to Venezuela to allow Iran to build a missile base.
You know, I'm a little surprised that the U.S. would allow that to develop because
they really can't stop it without going to war. And the Russians are also there protecting Venezuela. If we go against them, they're going to take it as an attack like if we went against Cuba.
Yeah, but we were willing to face down over Cuba on the Cuban Missile Crisis. We have never allowed our enemies to penetrate into the Western Hemisphere here. So if that in fact...
Obama's not the same class of president as Kennedy was.
Yeah, well, you're right about that, but at the same time, it's going to be something. I'm going to keep my eyes open for more information about that.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, have a great day.
Good information, Larry. Thank you very much. You know, when you have a lot of eyes and ears out there looking, sometimes we get some really important and valuable information. So I encourage all of you, be an extension of Endtime Ministries, and please do not hesitate to send emails our way containing articles that you think that I need to read. I have a staff here. I can't read every single thing that comes at me, or else I would just read all my life and still not get everything read. But I do have a staff here that helps me with those things, and they know the things that I perhaps have not received yet. So please do not hesitate to help us, because we want to do our very best to really know what is going on out there and to understand what's happening. I want to get back to our program for today, because such huge events. President Obama made a speech before the UN today, the UN General Assembly. And let me see if I can bring up some of the statements that he made that I thought were quite significant. I have some excerpts from his speech here. And U.S. President says, peace won't come through statements, resolutions at the UN. If it were that easy, it would have been accomplished by now. He's saying to the people who are going to vote for the Palestinians, look, we just can't take a vote and then say, okay, that's where the borders are. I mean, you talk about interfering in national sovereignty. That's the ultimate interference when you move in and try to shape borders. Well, that's exactly what the Palestinian Authority is asking the United Nations to do. During his speech, President Obama said this: 1 year ago, I stood at this podium and called for an independent Palestine. The president said, I believe then and I believe now that the Palestinian people deserve a state of their own. But what I also said is that genuine peace can only be realized through Israelis and Palestinians themselves. He went on to say, peace will not come through statements and resolutions at the UN. If it were that easy, it would have been accomplished by now. Ultimately, it is Israelis and Palestinians who must live side by side. Ultimately, it is Israelis and Palestinians, not us, who must reach agreement on the issues that divide them, on borders and security, on refugees and Jerusalem. Now, here's the contention of the Palestinians, and I'm sure we'll hear this in Mahmoud Abbas's speech on Friday. He's going to be saying, but we've tried negotiation for the last 20 years, and it hasn't worked. Now, what about that contention? I mean, there have been negotiations ongoing since 1991, so it's been 20 years. That's when the Oslo talks originally began that resulted in the Oslo Agreement of 1993 that has now gone defunct. So how valid is it? We've been negotiating 20 years, and we're stalemated. It's done no good. So what have the Israelis offered the Palestinians? The Palestinians say, what we want is 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as our capital. Now, that's what they have said. However, lately, within the last 2 weeks, Mahmoud Abbas has suddenly changed the tune, changed his demand, saying we want 1947 borders. So he's going to shrink Israel down anymore, not only asking Israel to return to 67 borders, but now to return to 1947 borders, which are much more constricted than the 67 borders. Now, he's doing that because the United Nations originally, back in 1947, drew the borders between Israel and Palestine. Israel, desperate to have any safe haven in the world, accepted, even though it was just a fraction of their ancient historic homeland. So Israel accepted, and the Arabs rejected declaring war on the fledgling state of Israel. So now then the Arabs are attempting to reclaim what they rejected in 1947. They're now saying that's where Israel's got to go back to, even though they rejected it and started a war of rejection against Israel. That war ultimately resulted in them losing land and ending up at the pre-1967 borders. So that's what's going on. Then they started another war in 1967, and they lost more land, and now they're at the present borders. If I were them, I wouldn't start any more wars. They're liable to end up in the Mediterranean Sea. I mean, I wouldn't start any more wars. Every time they start a war with Israel, they lose territory. So anyway, but what's the real conclusion of all of this? When the Palestinians say, we've tried negotiations, they don't work. Well, my question would be, what about the offer that Ehud Barak, one of the most liberal politicians in Israel, made to the Palestinians, to Yasser Arafat, when Bill Clinton brought Barak and Arafat together at Camp David in the year 2000? I mean, Barak offered to return 93 or 94% of the West Bank of the pre-1967 territories, and offered to give additional land somewhere else so that Arafat could say, I got all of it back, I got 100% back. However, and even at the time, apparently there was an offer made to share the Temple Mount, because when they got down to the Temple Mount issue, Arafat said, we just have to keep that. And Barak said, look, that's our side of our first temple, the side of our second temple. That's where we want to build our third temple. Arafat said, I'm sorry, we've got to keep it. Barak said, but you've got your first holy place in Mecca, your second holy place in Medina. This is only your third holy place. We Jews don't even have our first holy place. And Arafat looked at him and said, we can't. And that's when Bill Clinton interceded and said, look, just share it. Put it under a sharing arrangement. Muslims can worship there. Jews can worship there. Everybody can worship there. Well, Arafat said, that won't work. You can't put Jews and Arabs on the same 35 acres without them killing one another. Well, Barak said, we could put it under UN control, and we could share it under international supervision. Well, guess what Arafat said to that? No. Won't do it. So now he's been offered 100% of what they lost, and the Temple Mount under a sharing arrangement. And he says no. Well, then Ehud Olmert, back in 2006, was negotiating again with Mr. Abbas, and he thought that they had gotten a deal. I think he offered within 2% of the land and give you another 2% elsewhere that will make 100% you get back. And again, the answer was going to be the sharing of the Temple Mount. Abbas says no. So what's Abbas saying when he says we've tried the negotiation route and it hasn't worked? What's he mean by it hasn't worked is they won't give us everything we want. That's what he means. Well, negotiations, you don't normally get everything you want. One side gives a little, the other side gives a little. But as of right now, Mahmoud Abbas is not only demanding everything that was demanded by Arafat in 2000 and demanded by himself in 2006. Now then, he's starting to demand 1947 borders. Well, if they offer that, he'll probably say, I just think the Israelis need to go back to Germany where they came from. Return them to Auschwitz, return them to Dachau and the other concentration camps. That's really where they belong. Now, ladies and gentlemen, somebody's got to tell the truth here. That's what's going on here. I mean, really, there have been some really fair and equitable offers made. But so far they've been rejected. So now Abbas says, I'll get everything I want if I go to the UN because I got a lot of friends there and there's a lot of anti-Semitism there and they'll vote against the Jews and for the Arabs because we got the oil. That's another factor in this whole thing. And that's what's going on this week at the United Nations Security Council.
Technology, technology, technology. I know what you're thinking. It isn't for me. Some I've heard say it's only for geeks. Well, not anymore. Digital downloading has become quite simple. so that for all of us not so up to date with technology can do it with a breeze. Whether you're snowboarding in Alaska or climbing Mount Everest, or just simply sitting with some friends who think they know all the answers to Bible prophecy, you can now download tons of product from all your technical gadgets. Don't even ask me to name them. Go to endtime.com day or night, and in a matter of minutes, guess who looks like a genius? Your friends will be speechless. Go to www.endtime.com. That's ENDTIME.com. Click on shop and you're in business. Don't delay, download today, and become a part of the End Time Geek Club.
Death, destruction, poverty, war, disease. These are only some of the things that are ahead in the end time. Want to know more? Join us in reaching out and informing the world that over 2 billion people will die. We as a nation can't hide from this. We have to tell everyone we know about the prophesied war that will start from the river Euphrates. Call now to get your copy of World War III and spread the message that the end time is now. Call 1-800-END-TIME.
Can't get enough of politics and religion? Well, neither can we. We have some great news for all of you Bible prophecy gurus. Think no, not pre-trib, different subject, pre-show. Irvin Baxter will be teaching the End of the Age series. Here's what you do. Just log on to endtime.com/radio Monday through Friday at 2:30 p.m. Central Time and click on the live webcast button. Cha-ching! More Bible prophecy? How confusing having a favorite show. We feel your pain. Call 1-800-END-TIME for more information.
If you'll remember, the quartet was formed, what was that, back in 2002 by then Secretary of State Colin Powell. And the goal was to negotiate a peace agreement for Israelis and Palestinians and look them both in the eye and say, now, this is what we think you should do. Well, that didn't quite fly. So consequently, the quartet has been working ever since to try to come up with an agreement. They've been attempting to play the role of arbiter. The quartet consists of the United States, the European Union, the Russian Federation, and the United Nations. They've been meeting periodically. Mr. Tony Blair was asked to be their special envoy, which he has been doing since that time. However, the quartet's been meeting all week this week, and they hope to have a statement by Friday. So far, their statements have not amounted to much. We'll see what happens with this particular statement. Nevertheless, something that I thought it would be interesting for you to hear, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's international spokesperson, Mark Regev, gave a briefing to reporters in Jerusalem on Tuesday ahead of the Prime Minister's visit to New York for the UN General Assembly. Regev pointed out that by going to the United Nations to ask for recognition of a state, the Palestinian Authority is violating agreements it has previously signed with Israel. They made a commitment to solve all issues of contentions through negotiations, Regev said. By refusing to negotiate and now by trying to impose a solution, they are in clear violation of both the spirit and the letter of signed agreements. I already had mentioned to you that they had to violate previous agreements. Now, will this make previous agreements null and void? If they violate them, that means they're worthless. So does that mean that the Oslo features that have already been implemented could be reversed? Well, don't know the answer to that. One more story that's absolutely stunning. This is off topic, but interesting nonetheless. This comes from the EU Times, September 18. That's EUTimes.com. And the article is entitled, Europe Stunned After Being Told, are you ready for this? Obama is not in charge. If you're like me, you did a double take and said, say that again? Europe is stunned after being told Obama is not in charge. European Union Times, September 18, 2011. A new report prepared by Russian Deputy Finance Minister Tatiana Nestorenko about the Eurogroup meeting of the Informal Economic and Financial Affairs Council in Wrocław, Poland, on the growing European debt crisis states that EU finance ministers were left stunned Friday after they were told by U.S. Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner that President Obama was not in charge. According to this report, the uninvited U.S. Treasury Secretary showed up at the ECOFIN, the ECOFIN conference, and engaged in what can only be described as a temper tantrum, where he slammed Europe's economic policymakers for their intransigence in providing further bailouts to Greece. And when queried by European Central Bank Chief Jean-Claude Trichet as to if this was Obama's position too, was told by Geithner, "He's not in charge, I am." Are you listening to this? ECB Chief Trichet, according to other news reports, rebuked Geithner and stated that the financial position of the 17-member Eurozone is better than that of other major economies, especially the United States. This shocking revelation as to who is actually running the United States comes on the heels of further allegations that Geithner deliberately ignored Obama's orders to prepare a plan to wind down the mammoth international banking group, Citigroup, in order to help save the American economy. And as we can in part read as reported by the San Francisco Chronicle. The article goes on to say, even more stunning, this report continues, are revelations being brought to light by the New York Times Magazine that Geithner, along with the director of the White House National Economic Council, Larry Summers, formed an unholy troika with the banking behemoth Goldman Sachs to literally steal the entire U.S. economic system away from Obama and the American people for the sole purpose of looting it for the benefit of a few elite bankers, politicians, and other parasites. Whoa. I wonder where all that bailout money went. I know you didn't get any. I didn't get any. And yet there were trillions. And all the big bankers had bigger bonuses than ever, even though they had miserably failed. How do you get a bonus for failing? I thought you had to succeed quite well to get a bonus. Okay, now I know you're not believing me, so let me allow you to look this up for yourself. It's the EU Times, September the 18th of 2008. I just felt like you need to see this for yourself. Europe stunned after being told Obama is not in charge. You can go there, read it for yourself. The article goes on to say the power vacuum created in the White House allowing these banksters to take over was exacerbated by Summers, who, upon joining the Obama team, declared there's no adult in charge, thus allowing him and Geithner to be insubordinate to Obama and hijack the American economy for themselves and their cronies. Now, you do know where Timothy Geithner comes from, right? He was the chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, which is the most powerful Federal Reserve Bank. Remember this Federal Reserve that was created in 1913 that took away the minting of money away from the government and put it in the hands of these private bankers? And they've been setting the interest rates and they've been determining the money supply since that time. Same people, that's who he worked for. And now this European story, which I don't know why this hasn't hit the news here in the United States of America, this European story, I want to read this again. This is amazing because Goldman Sachs is very powerful. Most of your Treasury Department officials come from Goldman Sachs. Let me read this once again. You got to hear this. Even more stunning, this report continues, are revelations being brought to light by the New York Times Magazine. Might check out the New York Times Magazine, that Geithner, along with Director White House National Economic Council Larry Summers, formed an unholy troika with the banking behemoth Goldman Sachs to literally steal the entire U.S. economic system away from Obama and the American people for the sole purpose of looting it for the benefit of a few elite bankers, politicians, and other such parasites. Wow. This is the stuff that topples governments, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, this is contending that Geithner looked at Obama and Obama told him what to do, and he went and did the opposite. He refused to obey. Insubordination. Be surprised if heads don't roll before this thing's over. The power vacuum created in the White House, allowing these banksters to take over. That kind of information in the New York Times Magazine. The article goes on to say, to any relief being seen coming for the American people before their nation is totally destroyed by these monsters, it appears unlikely, as the veil of oppression keeping them in check shows no sign of loosening. Sadly to note are that laws such as these allowing a government to begin mass confiscation of their citizens' private wealth, like those enacted by the former German Nazi Empire and Soviet Russian regimes, always presaged mass civil unrest, revolution, and outright war. Is that what's going on at Wall Street today? Bloomberg's predictive warning of unrest appears to be spot on, as even while these words are being written, U.S. police forces have locked down the financial capital of America on Wall Street after thousands of protesters descended upon it in a day of rage demonstration invoking Mideast rallies and calling for an end to corporate greed that favors the rich over the poor. Wow. I think we better go to our knees today, America. So much happening in our world. Aren't you glad you know what the prophecies say? Aren't you glad you know the one who really rules the world, even controls Timothy Geithner, even controls Larry Summers, even controls Goldman Sachs? I'm so glad that we know there is a higher power above Barack Obama, above all the nations of the world. And I'm so glad to know Jesus Christ. He's your hope. He's my hope. Well, we're trying to get this news out of what is really going to happen. I have peace today. The reason I have peace is because I know what's going to happen. I know from the prophecies of the Bible what's going to happen. And you can know too, if you have never been through our course called Understanding the End Time, 14 DVDs now ready. The entire set is ready. If you go through this, you will have superior to a Bible college education, to a theological seminary education. You will have superior to that in Bible prophecy. And we're translating all this now into the 8 major languages of the world. We need $120,000. We're sitting at $108,912. If you want to help us get there, we're only about $11,200 away. So if you want to contribute, do it now. Let's get this thing done quick. Call us 1-800-END-TIME if you'd like to help out. Thank you so much.
Politics and Religion is a production of Endtime Ministries. We are a daily 1-hour broadcast dedicated to bringing you the prophetic fulfillments happening every single day. If you would like to listen to archive programs, subscribe to Endtime Magazine, find a prophecy conference, order Endtime products, or subscribe to our free weekly e-newsletter, call 1-800-END-TIME. Or go to endtime.com and take advantage of everything that the website has to offer. To be a part of Endtime Ministries, partner with us and help this message go to the entire world. Endtime Ministries is a partner-supported ministry. We'd like to take a moment to thank all of our loyal partners and listeners for helping make Politics and Religion and Endtime Ministries possible.
If you would like to have a copy of today's program, you can obtain it by simply calling us at 1-800-END-TIME, or you can go to our website, www.endtime.com. You can either order the physical product from there and it will be shipped to you, or there's also a place there for you to digitally download it, and you can have it within minutes and be enjoying it in the privacy of your own home. I'm so excited to announce to you our 14 lessons making up our Understand the End Time Prophecy series. Our 14 lessons now include the United States discovered in the Bible, New World Order, is world government, Islam in Bible prophecy, World War III, Israel's God-given destiny, Israel, God's prophetic time clock, Holy Roman Empire reborn, Antichrist and the false prophet, 666 Mark of the Beast, the secret pact between Gorbachev and the Vatican, when all religions become one, the 7 trumpets, the second coming, and the kingdom of God established on earth. You want to have all 14 of these marvelous prophecy lessons. If you go through these 14 DVDs, each of them 1 hour, you are going to know more about Bible prophecy than the average student graduating from theological seminary. We need to know where we are right now. Jesus Christ said, I tell you these things before they come to pass, so that when they do come to pass, you might believe. So the number to call is, one more time, 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463, or go to endtime.com.
You can now have all 14 Understanding the End Time DVDs filmed in End Time's TV studio with green screen technology using beautiful full-screen graphics. All 14 hours are just $1.99. Go to endtime.com or call 1-800-END-TIME right now.